Welcome to the Mayor of Money podcast with former Burlington Mayor Rick Goldring, CEO of Goldring Financial Leadership. In this podcast, we provide successful business owners with cutting-edge information and strategies in the areas of estate and financial planning, including wealth and risk management. The podcast also features exclusive interviews with very successful entrepreneurs that Rick has known and worked with during his career. Now, on to the show.
Well, I'm very pleased to welcome to the Mayor of Money podcast today, Steve Loates and Juliet Aurora of AIS Solutions. Juliet started the business back in 2022. Their mission statement is helping entrepreneurs make smarter decisions to grow their businesses, gain more time, money, and freedom by providing them with real-time financial information using the latest in cloud technology and the very best ninja accounting professionals. They have been recognized in so many different ways. Juliet's been recognized as one of the top 50 women in accounting in 2020. They were named Intuit's Global Firm of the Future for Canada. They were, as well as HubDoc's top 50 cloud accountants in North America. They've got tremendous accolades and they've got a great business. And recently they moved down to the Maritimes, which we'll talk about. But Steve and Juliet, a warm welcome to the Mayor of Money podcast. Thanks for agreeing to be on the podcast. And Juliet, my first question is to you. 22 years ago, you started in business, a little different than the way you're starting or the way you're running your business today. But you were facing a crossroads in your life, and you made a decision that's led you down the path that you've been on.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rick, for having us. Steve and I are very happy to be here, and congratulations on your podcast as well. So yes, it was 22 years ago that I started my business. More than anything else, it was born out of necessity and a desire to spend more time with my daughter. She was very young at the time, and I felt like she was just spending too much time in daycare. I was in the corporate world at the time, and so would, drop her off at daycare at 7:38 in the morning and then not pick her up till 5:30 or 6 in the evening. And at the time, the company that I was working for, which was a multinational mining company, also decided to make some changes and were relocating their head office. And so I decided not to move with them, take the leap, and I got a severance package walking out the door and thought, well, I'll give myself 6 months. Let's see if I can do this on my own. If not, then in 6 months, I will, pound pavement and go back into the corporate world. So that was 22 years ago. Honestly, at the time, I was just trying to, put food on the table for my daughter, make sure that we had a roof over our heads, and be able to spend more time with her and watch her grow up. If someone had said to me at that time, if you were to fast forward, that I would then be, I would have a team of 19 people and we would be national and we would have clients across the country, I would have told them that they were crazy. There was no way that was even remotely part of my vision, but things evolved and we kind of followed a completely different path as we went cloud. And so here we are now.
Now, being a husband and wife, being life partners as well as business partners, how do you make that work? Is it not challenging, always talking about work? Wouldn't that be a natural thing when you're married and you're living with your business partner, that you're always talking about work? How have you managed to navigate that part of it?
Sure. And thank you again, Rick, for having us on the podcast. It is not without its challenges, and it's like anything else. It takes work. One of the things we did with the business, we knew because of our personalities, both having reasonably strong independent personalities, that we needed to at least differentiate our responsibilities in the business. So that was the first part of the separation. where I would be responsible for the sales, the marketing, the advertising, and Juliet would be responsible for all of the admin, the team, the training, et cetera, our, designing and implementing all of our processes. So that helped a little. And then it just became, like I say, at home, making a conscious effort. And I can still remember one time we thought we were doing a pretty good job, and we were sitting down at dinner with our daughter. And I forget how old she was. Was she maybe 10, I think, or so? And I remember we were chatting, and I think either I or Juliet turned to her and said, "You're very quiet, you're not, don't seem like you have a lot to say." And she said, "Well, you guys are always talking about work, so there's not really anything for me to add to the conversation." Well, you talk about a reality check. I mean, we really thought we had done a good job of separating, but obviously we hadn't. And it was, that was an eye opener. And we, like I say, we now force ourselves that at certain times, we are not going to talk about work, no matter how badly we want to or may even need to. And that's all it is being aware and working at it.
Now, Juliet, I've done a little research. You've been on other podcasts, and one of the things I found out is for the first 10 years that you worked in your home. And then you moved into an office, and I think I was Mayor of Burlington that time. I remember clipping the ribbon when you opened your office in Burlington. But there was rationale to moving into an office. And can you explain, rather than me giving the answer, can you explain what your thought was in establishing an office in 2010? Because you're not in an office again, or you're not in an office anymore.
True. Yes. So for the first 10 years, it was running the business out of my house. I would have staff meetings around my dining table, and most of the work was being done on site at clients, either by myself or by my team. And at the time, it was all subcontractors that I had. And, as Steve mentioned, and at that point, Steve wasn't involved in the business, it was still just me. But I was having a really difficult time separating my work and my home life. So I would get up in the morning, and before I did anything, the first thing I'd do is turn on my computer. And then before, after dinner, I'd go back upstairs and I'd work. And the last thing I would do at night was turn off my computer. And I found that I was just working so much and wasn't able to separate the two, with my office being in my home. And so more than anything, the decision to move into an office was twofold. One was I needed to separate my work and my home life. I needed to get some balance in my life. So if I actually had to go to the office, I wouldn't work at home. But also we made the decision that at the time, one of the USPs for us was that the bookkeepers that we had were supervised by accountants. And once we grew to a point where I couldn't be in 5 different places, we were losing that supervised by accountants ability. And so by bringing everyone into an office and moving to a cloud, and cloud didn't even really exist at that point, to a remote business model, we were able to have the work done in one location. So the bookkeepers were there, and we could reinstate the supervised by accountants, which made us different from most of the other bookkeeping firms that were out there. Those were probably the 2 big reasons that we moved into an office space.
And Steve, you didn't start initially with Juliet. Juliet was on her own. What brought you into the business?
Sure. I had owned my own retail business for 20 plus years in Burlington. And it was just, I guess I'd reached a point where I was, as much as anything, I was bored. It was, the same challenges, the same solutions. It was the same routine. And I really felt I'd reached a point in my life where I really wanted to do something different, needed to do something different. So just through conversations over dinner, it sort of became, well, what if? Because like I say, for 20 plus years, that retail business had been a big part of my life. And what was I going to do, if I wasn't going there? And it probably over maybe a 6 to 12 month period of just discussions over lots of glasses of wine. And I believe a few mudslides on a beach somewhere in the Caribbean. Where finally, we just sort of looked at each other and said, yep, that's what we're going to do. And so we did it. And I think we did go into it with our eyes wide open, knowing that, it wasn't going to be perfect. There was going to be some good, there was going to be some not so good, and that we would really have to work at it. But looking back, it was, I think, the right decision, and I'm not sure we would change any of it.
Well, good for you. I was in a study group a number of years ago with different people in the financial services business and advisors, and there were many of the advisors in the study group that had hired their spouses, and a number had fired their spouses. So it's good for you that you had the wisdom and the respect for each other, and the flexibility in dealing with the issues you have to deal with in order to make it work, because that's obviously what was required, that you have your own different areas to focus on, and but you certainly get input from each other.
Yeah, and I think you hit the key word there, Rick, was respect. That, obviously you're life partners, so you love each other, but you also have to have respect for each other, respect for each other's abilities, and trust and faith that, that if I leave this with this person, they will take care of it, and take care of it, to, maybe not to my complete satisfaction, but we'll take care of it in a way that will keep, our business and our lives moving forward. So respect is absolutely the key to the whole thing.
So the business started in 2000. And Steve, what year did you join?
Well, I like to say I joined full-time in about 2011 or 12, I would say. Okay. But I was a part-time consultant, I think, from about 2005.
Yes, I'm sure. So there's no question.
I wasn't getting paid then, though, Rick, I must admit, from 2005 to 2010. Yes.
I understand. So, but from the time that the business was established in 2010 at your dining room table, Juliet, to opening up your office, to Steve joining you around the same time as your office opened in Burlington in 2010, 2011, and then to today, your business has changed. You have more people working with you. You talk about you're dealing with companies coast to coast in Canada, nationally. How have you changed? What has been the lessons learned for you along the way?
That is a great question. There's so many. I think there's probably two that have been the biggest for me. One was we hired a business coach back in 2011, Dan Holstein out of Action Coach, to work with us. And he fundamentally shifted what my focus and our focus was going to be. That we didn't want to just build a business that was a job, creating jobs for ourselves, but we wanted to build a business that could run without us. And up until that point, we were basically creating jobs for ourselves. So that was probably the biggest shift of what I learned and changed the trajectory of everything that I focused on and did after that. And then the second one that I learned as I grew team members. So when I was, with subcontractors, we all kind of ran independently because everyone was a subcontractor. When we moved into the physical office in Burlington in 2010, we brought people on as employees. And for the first 2 years, we had a revolving door of employees. We would have people come in, we'd hire them, they'd start, and then they'd leave or we'd fire them. So we didn't have any kind of proper methodology to find the right people, to retain the right people, to motivate them. And so there was a big shift in what my focus was to make sure that we were choosing the right team members. And the guideline kind of became not just about skills, but about fit and who they were as people. Did I like them as people? Would I want to invite them over to my house for dinner as people? And if the answer was no to any of that, then we wouldn't hire them, even if they had the skills. We can teach them skills, but we couldn't teach them fit. And so focusing a lot more on our company culture, what it was we wanted to build, what the environment was that we wanted to create for our team, really were probably the two biggest lessons in how we changed what I was doing for the business.
So how do you determine fit?
Great question. More than anything else, so we've developed this hiring process that we've modified over the years to identify from them whether they align with our values, whether they buy into our mission for our business. And our mission has changed over the years as well. You read it from our website, where our focus is to help small business and entrepreneurs. Over the last year, we have started a foundation as well. And now my big driving purpose is for AIS to be able to fund this foundation. And one of the first initiatives of the foundation is going to be to build a women's shelter. And so over the last 2 years of hiring and bringing on new team members, it's, does this vision and this mission resonate with you? Do you want to help me build something that is going to be able to fund this foundation? And so more than anything, it's having conversations with prospective team members as to, what do they want in their life? What's important to them? What are the values that are important to them? And do they align with AIS and what we want to do?
And how do you continue to inspire your team? Do you have an employee benefit program? Do you have programs where you give them time off for whatever reason? How flexible are you with the hours? I mean, what have you done to come up with, because yes, you need to have that personal connection, and obviously you do. And with your foundation and your charitable work, obviously that spurs a camaraderie. But what else do you do to make sure your people continue to develop?
So over the last 2 years, we have moved from a physical office in Burlington to now we are 100% virtual. So we no longer have the office in Burlington, and we have team members that are coast to coast. And we made the decision to move to virtual because we found that having a physical office was limiting us to who we could hire based on geographic location. So they would have to come to our office, and we weren't finding, and so finding the right people was holding us back from growing. So when we made the switch to virtual, it expanded our pool of potential team members across the country so that we could make sure that we were choosing, again, based on fit. But it did become a challenge on keeping everyone engaged. Obviously, working from home isn't for everybody. Some people love it, some people don't. Obviously, over the last 2 years as well with the pandemic, everyone has kind of learned whether or not they are a work from home person or they're not. But we very much believe that if we take care of our team will take care of our clients, and then the business will take care of itself. And so over the last 2 years, we have regular check-ins and weekly team get-together. One of the first things that we do in the team meetings is we share wins, because we want to talk about the positive things that are happening in everybody's lives. And it doesn't need to be, business wins. We were looking for personal, because we want to make sure that connection is still there between the team. We have all your typical things that most small businesses do. We have a benefit plan and we have profit sharing, but I think it is the culture that we've developed, the camaraderie that we've developed. We have flex time and more than anything else over the last 2 years has allowed people to take care of all the other things that are in their lives. You know, if you've got young kids that have been in and out of school with online learning, that they were able to work around life as opposed to having their life fit around work. And I think that more than anything else is the biggest benefit that we've been able to provide.
So you mentioned that you went from working out of your home for the first 10 years to working in an office for the next 10 years. And then COVID pushed you to work at home again, and you're going to continue to work at home. And there's no plans to establish another office, is my understanding.
Correct. Yes. It was actually, COVID just sped up our timeline by about 3 months. We had made the decision in the summer of 2019 to move to 100% virtual. And so had spent all of fall and spring preparing for it. That COVID just moved up our timeline for 3 months to moving virtual. But yes, there are no plans to move back into a physical office.
So part of the transition or change that you've had in the last little while is moving your home from Burlington, Ontario, the western end of Lake Ontario, and part of the GTA, the fastest growing metropolitan area in North America, actually, and you moved to St. Andrews, New Brunswick, in the Maritimes. And I believe that's happened in the last 12 months or so. How's that been? What's that transition been like, Steve?
Yeah, no, it's been great. We knew that we wanted to move. We knew that we wanted to live on the water, which was always one of our dreams. And just, you know, as Juliet said, once our business became 100% virtual, it really did become sort of like a perfect storm where, okay, our business is now virtual, so we can work from anywhere. So we could move now. And then, of course, the real estate market in Southern Ontario, as it is wont to do from time to time, lost its mind again. And we took advantage of that, absolutely, and just said, you know, what are we waiting for? Like, if we can do it now, let's do it now, as opposed to waiting. And so, as many others have done, we listed our home. It sold very quickly. We actually sold our home before we had bought a home. Because of the lockdowns, we could not come to the East Coast and look for a home. So we had to find our home virtually, which is kind of ironic with our business being virtual. But we did all of our house tours on video with the real estate agent. And I mean, if someone would have told me that I would, you know, make the biggest purchase of your life without ever stepping into the home first, I would have told them they were out of their mind. I would never do that. Well, guess what? Never's a long time. And so we did. And like I say, no regrets at all. It's been a wonderful move for us, and no regrets.
So how was the winter for you? Your first winter in New Brunswick, how was that?
Yeah, it was great. You know, the people here are great. You know, when we were last fall, we were asking, you know, so what is the typical winter like? You know, do we get a lot of snow? And it was funny. The answers were all over the place. It's like these people were living in different places. And so we never really got a straight answer, so we didn't know what to expect. But it really was, you know, I mean, on my phone, I still have, I guess I haven't totally disconnected. I still have Burlington's weather. So, you know, I would check, okay, well, where's it warmer? Is it warmer in St. Andrews today or in Burlington? Who's getting the most snow? And it actually, there wasn't a huge difference in terms of temperature and weather this past winter. And they do tell us that this was one of the colder winters they've had in St. Andrews in the last 5 years or so. So we've weathered that storm. So everything is good from now.
Well, good for you. You're a great example to others that may want to consider making such a move, not just for their business being virtually, but moving your home to a different environment that's got to be much slower pace than it is in the greater Toronto Hamilton area.
Yeah, well, and a very sorry, Juliet, a very good friend of mine told me something 25, 30 years ago that has stuck with me since then. And he said to me, Steve, this isn't a dress rehearsal. We get one chance at this, and, have no regrets. And so whenever, I'm sort of hesitating on making a decision, those words echo in my head. And I say, okay, what's the worst thing that happens? We move and we don't like it. We move back. It's not the end of the world. So it is just make sure you have no regrets and move forward.
Now, Juliet, you were going to add something.
Yeah, and I think that, as Steve said, it kind of was a perfect storm of the events that happened to cause us to move. But I think for me anyways, a big part of that was COVID. With the pandemic, we took a step back and said, what is it that's important to us? What do we want our life to look like? That we went through this whole reflection and reevaluation of what is it that we want our retirement years to look like. And we'd always talked about retiring on the East Coast, but as we moved the business virtual, we're able to run everything, weren't needing to meet clients in person, weren't needing to meet with the team. The question really was, well, what are we waiting for? Why are we waiting until we retire to live out the life that we want to live? And what is it that aligns with your purpose of what you want to achieve at the end of your life? And that's kind of the driving factor of why we said, yeah, we don't know anybody in New Brunswick. We're going to buy a house that we've never walked into, but here's the time to do it.
And you did it.
And we did.
And there's no regrets. Wonderful.
No regrets.
Wonderful.
Nope.
In wrapping up, we know that what business you're in. You provide quality bookkeeping service using cloud technology for successful businesses across the country. Are there particular businesses that you specialize in more than others? Certain lines of business?
Yes. So we have 3 areas that we specialize in. E-commerce. E-commerce bookkeeping is so complex, and there are so many things that can potentially go wrong. And we thrive on complexity in our firm, I think, more than anything else. So e-commerce is certainly one of them. Home services is the second. So we have teams that handle each of the 3 areas. Home services is the second, which would be like construction, plumbers, HVAC. And then the third one are professional landscaping, right? And then the third one are professional services. So consultants, agencies, other businesses that are already cloud-based. And so their entire business is already in the cloud. Why wouldn't their bookkeeping, their accounting be as well?
Great. So you've gone from offering your services to a wide array of people to a more narrow focus over the years. And I heard some years ago, the smaller the niche, the bigger the market. And when you focus on something, it's amazing how many people need those particular services, and that you meet more and more people that are in those niches. So I want to say a big thank you to both of you for taking time to share your journey with regard to AIS Solutions and your personal life journey in the last couple of years with regard to COVID and moving to St. Andrews in New Brunswick. You've done great things with your business. You're doing great things with your team and great things with your family. And I congratulate you for all your achievements and what you've been able to do in your life. Thank you so much, both of you, for being guests on the Mayor of Money podcast. Thank everybody for tuning in today. And we'll see you next time on the Mayor of Money. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks, Rick.
Thank you for listening to the Mayor of Money podcast. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. If you'd like to have a one-on-one discussion with Rick or have an idea for a particular guest or topic, contact him at rick@rickgoldring.com. See you next time on the Mayor of Money podcast.